So something that I really mean from my heart is just try things, just experiment, just do something that other people haven't tried, and begin with low-hanging fruit. Why start at the top? That doesn't make any sense. I often use running as a metaphor because I run every day, and it took me a little while to adopt that habit because I hate all kinds of sports, basically. But I am a runner now, and I'm proud of that achievement.
My guest today is called one of the top leadership experts and top 100 leadership speakers, along with big names like Simon Sinek. He's been inspiring readers worldwide with books that focus on very concrete and actionable management practices for organizations. And I have all of his amazing books here. So many amazing books. I've used them in my career. He's a speaker trainer with 400 trainees globally who license workshops on making management fun. What an interesting topic. He's a serial co-founder and entrepreneur. And actually, I was introduced to your work, Jurgen Appelo, in the midst of a chaotic agile transformation. While I was working with La Manager and trying to save my team from the horrors of it. And your work, moving motivators and delegation poker was something that I used to motivate my teams and create fun and tame the managers and even, have them become loved by the team. So it also surprisingly helped me more about myself. And it actually led me to become a career coach because it led me to all that self-reflection, introspection. So welcome, Jurgen Appelo. So excited to be here with you today.
Thank you so much, Renata. It's great to hear that. You make me blush.
So Jurgen, one of my most favorite sections of your book around how to change the world, you brag about your 15 years of failure starting in the 90s. Writing a book, about bookkeeping software that was only sold to a few customers, launching an internet startup that won a national award, and then, having it collapse after, $1 million was invested in it. And then how your teams begged for leadership to take you away from becoming a developer and then becoming a manager. And ironically, now you go into organizations and teach them how to manage. So I'm very curious to know, how did you turn those failures into successes to become someone who actually leads by example?
That's a great question, actually. I think it is in my nature to try things recklessly. I have a very low risk threshold compared to others, apparently. That proves itself because of my injuries that I have all the time. Yet again, I have injuries on my knees because I fell in the dark 2 weeks ago while running at 6 a.m. in the morning in pitch dark in a park. That's the kind of things that I do, apparently. I never learn, it seems. But in general, yeah, I do things that others seem to be a bit reluctant to try out. But because I try things out, I learn. And I learn things that others therefore don't because they don't try these same things. And at the same time, I am someone who loves to write. I like creating stuff. So I thought, why not write about my experiences, the things I learned? And then it turns out that me being a pioneer and explorer seems to help other people with their problems that they are struggling with. So yes, I have quite a few failures behind me, but as I teach people with my workshops and webinars, etc., you probably need 10 or 20 failures to finally hit upon one big success. So just keep trying.
I can kind of relate to that. I feel that when you struggle with a particular pain, And then it sounds like when you teach people, you're actually, learning at the same time. And I know that I had my failures throughout my career where I was doing just the wrong thing in terms of interviews, in terms of how I act, in an employment setting. Like one of the stupidest thing that I've done was pocket dial one of my bosses or my boss's boss while I was not speaking very nicely about him, or quitting over text. And now I actually coach, people on how to articulate themselves and how to use executive presence in interviews and how to behave well to put yourself in the best light in an employment setting. So I can totally relate in terms of, maybe that was something you struggled with at the beginning, but you were able to really not only be great at it, but actually teach people from your experiences.
Right. And sometimes the traditional journalists who are not so good at asking questions, they come up with these questions like, what is the one takeaway from your book? And boring questions like that. Um, and but then I usually answer with something that I really mean from my heart. Is just try things, just experiment, just do something that other people haven't tried, and I noticed that people love the stories, the examples that I have from my past, whether it is inviting colleagues to my house to cook together, or showing vacation photos to each other during lunch breaks, or whatever. I always had something silly on my mind with my team members, and it turned out that they love that kind of stuff. They love the human aspect, the human dimension, yeah. So that's what I'm trying to express with what I'm doing. I just do silly stuff, and some of it seems to work, and I'm glad some of the things have worked for you.
Yeah, and it sounds like because you were very in touch with the concept of happiness and creating that happiness in your work, that's what helped you sort of get closer to your North Star as you navigated your career. I love, your concepts around creating, happiness in the workplace, because that's what actually drives the performance. And if we look at it not just from a team environment or how do we get successful people in organizations, even introspectively, like being in touch with what makes you happy and going through an iterative approach in terms of your career, rather than saying, okay, I woke up this morning and I was born to be this, and this is what I'm going to do all my life. And it doesn't matter if it makes me happy or not.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I understand that. And another thing that came to mind just now is when I remember when I was 11 years old, and my parents came to talk with my teacher about my behaviors in class and my future, etc. The teacher said, "Jurgen is very territorial. Whenever his neighbor kid has like a tiny bit of a pencil sticking out on his side of the desk, he's like." Away. And bags and everything had to be outside of my comfort space, my territory. I protected that. I still do. It's a bit of a daily evening joke between me and my spouse that I always draw the line in bed before we go to sleep, like this is my part, that over there is your part. I can't sleep if you cross the line. It's still there many decades later. But I joke about it. But uh, that is something apparently that I have, that I can draw boundaries clearly, and that is to protect my happiness, my myself, also as a worker. So I don't take phone calls, for example, because it makes me very unhappy to have that thing buzz and ring randomly and not knowing who is calling. If you want to call me, send a message first, and then we have an appointment, like with a webinar or Zoom meetups. It's now very common actually to make an appointment first, but I did that already for 10 years. Don't call me, send me a message, because I am concentrating, I am writing, or I am doing other stuff that that I want to be doing. And I want to be in flow. I want to be in the zone and not having to worry about yet another direct marketer trying to sell their stuff to me. So yeah, I'm territorial. I'm not afraid to admit that. And sorry, there's an ambulance going by here. I live in the city center. Yeah, that's part of who I am, and that's also what helps me be happy, I suppose.
Wow, that's very powerful. So, another thing that I loved in your book is how you broke down three options when dealing with crappy organizations: ignore it, quit, and learn about change management. And I wanted to ask you, so from a perspective of a manager, I get it. You're in a position of power, you have some, ability to kind of change the organization. But what if you are not in a position of power and you have a boss who's like Daffy Taffy, bribing people with pizza and then, micromanaging? If you are not in that position of power, but you're still a coach or not even a coach, how do you navigate that situation? What option do you recommend, and when does each option work?
Well, first of all, I think that there is a lot of learned helplessness out there. I have noticed so many times that people tell me too easily, well, there's nothing I can do because I'm not a manager and I cannot change anything around here. And then I'm like, really? You're not able to invite your colleagues for dinner at your house? Somebody forbids you to do that? Seriously? No, everyone prevents you from organizing a book club in half an hour after office hours to read a chapter per day, as they do at some companies. Someone told you not to do that? I don't believe that. There are so many options, so many things that you can try. Just get out of the building and go have a coffee, for God's sake, with some of your team members, and just talk about stuff. What are the little things you could improve? Uh, Whether it is indeed, as I said, showing vacation photos to each other, or cooking or whatever. There are plenty of things you can do that do not attack the middle management layer immediately, but that will create sympathy, that will help bonding between team members, and that will help them be happier, because you need happy people, enjoyable conversations to take on the more challenging stuff. And I think that's one of the fundamental aspects of change management, is just begin with the low-hanging fruit. Why start at the top? That doesn't make any sense. I often use running as a metaphor, because I run every day, and it took me a little while to adopt that habit, because I hate all kinds of sports, basically. But I am a runner now, and I'm proud of that achievement. But one of the books I read on that topic said, in the beginning, just take a walk around the house. That's it. Don't start with a 10K, or that doesn't make any sense. You will be demotivated immediately. Start with a low-hanging fruit. Just take a walk around the house, but do that 3 times per week. That walk around the house, because you have to start with something that is simple, that gets you into a habit. And once that habit is there, you can start increasing the challenge. And I think the same applies to team members who say, well, there's nothing I can do around here. I think there are plenty of options to start changing things. So you refer to take it, leave it, or change it. You take things as they are in your organization, but you create this cocoon within your team where things are enjoyable, and you just deal with the big bad world organization outside of the boundaries. That's take it. Leave it is, of course, quitting your job. That's always a possibility. It's more difficult for some than for others, but you are in control of your life, I hope. Otherwise, you would be a slave. And I do not know personally any slaves in my social circles. So everyone has a responsibility for their work lives. So you can quit, even though it is scary. So take it, leave it, or change it. And the last part, indeed, is change. It starts changing things around the team, first within your team and then around it. But you have to begin with the low-hanging fruit, as I said.
When you're new to an organization and you're sitting in a meeting, some of the things that I get from my clients are, I'm too scared to voice my opinion. I have to listen because I don't want to be the person who ruffles any feathers. I'm in a, environment that's very rigid and I'm scared, of upsetting anyone. What would your advice be for that person?
Come and live in Holland for a few years. We don't have that problem.
Oh, I'm gonna move there.
We have the opposite problem. Everyone voicing their opinions all the time. It drives you completely nuts. We have a country of 17 million people and 17 million experts on the coronavirus. But well, seriously, yeah, it is difficult for me to relate to that because I am from this culture where everyone just speaks their minds, and we easily offend everyone around us. Well, I think yesterday I did a webinar for a client, and we talked about communication and personal safety and things like that. And I offered the suggestions from nonviolent communication and clean language. There are a couple of models that coaches and consultants are familiar with, I hope. And what I like is the concept of trying not to attack someone, but just saying, this is what I noticed, and this is the impact that it has on me, and then leave the rest to others. So if something is something is happening in the organization that makes you suffer in whatever kind of way, you need to express that, but in such a way that somebody else does not feel directly attacked, because then they become defensive and they might attack back. But that it helps when you just offer a statement like, I see that this new policy is in place, or I saw this email, and the impact that it had on me was I felt sad or depressed or anxious or whatever. And then nonviolent communication says you can express your need. Is it I would like to feel a bit happier in my job. Can we do this or that? It takes a bit of getting used to that sort of pattern of communication, but the few times that I tried it, it was quite effective. I have noticed. It's just hard when you're in an emotional state to stick to such a pattern, because the frustration is out there before you know it, at least in my case. So I am the kind of person who struggles with being too blunt and forward with his opinion. But others could benefit from such an approach as well, who do not say anything, who fear that they might invite a counterattack or retaliation or whatever. You can you can lower that risk by just sticking to the facts and your own feelings, and then leave the response to the other person.
Yeah, and you hit it on the nail earlier when you said that it's important to create those relationships, those personal relationships with people. And I've seen your work around creating those, models where people get to know each other, their hobbies, and all of those wonderful personal aspects. And when you create that relationship and you know someone at a personal level, then their tolerance and their interpretation of what you're saying is going to be completely different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's the relationship building, which is more difficult nowadays in the current lockdown situations or semi-lockdowns that we have over here in Europe, at least. I know some people are complaining that well, you can get the regular stuff done, perhaps you might be more productive, but the social aspect, the glue and the team is much harder to achieve, and that could have some long-term detrimental effects where teams, organizations start disintegrating, basically because they are not having those coffees and those water cooler chats anymore. I think that's something to watch out for.
So, what is your recommendation for now that people can do to still create those positive relationships? Because we can't get together anymore and have dinner or, have drinks. What are some alternatives that we can do virtually to still create, those positive relationships?
Oh, well, there are plenty of remote work experts. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just a remote worker myself, plodding along with my own little businesses. So I do have some experience, but the experts have lots of exercises that you can do with remote teams. For example, just Google for remote team exercises, and you'll find really cool stuff that you can do with distributed people. To get to know each other, to have a bit of fun, to play games. I had some good results with some very simple habits that I had with an earlier team, where, for example, we started every meeting with a 5-minute mandatory chit chat. The first 5 minutes of every call, we were not allowed to talk about work. We had to talk about non-work stuff, such as who has seen a great movie recently, or what's the book that you're reading right now, or is your wife back from hospital because you said something about her being sick last week. So it's just the awareness to talk about some non-work stuff. It could be personal, it could be hobbies, it could be family, or whatever. It doesn't matter. That is enough. That 5-minute awareness to be a reminder to work on that social glue. And sometimes it was difficult. Then after 2 or 3 minutes, we were like, okay, what other question can we ask? And then this silence fell for 30 seconds or so. But that was rare. Most of the time it was easy, and sometimes the 5 minutes became 15 when there were elections going on in the UK or US or whatever. Then everyone had something to say. That was fun. But it's good to have these habits, these reminders that you can easily inject before or after your meetings.
And I love your illustrations and your games, and those are things that you can still do virtually with teams in order to get to know them, like incorporate them in a let's say biweekly, retro, and just spend time, really get to know people, looking at their motivators, just creating those models, asking questions. Those are really amazing ways to kind of replace some of the face-to-face interaction.
Right.
So my last question for you, because I know that your time is very valuable, is one of the things that really stuck with me when I read your books is you talk about manage the system for happiness and offer products with meaning. So as individuals, we are managers of our career, right? And I feel that this resonated with me because you can have a very, for those people who feel that they're stuck in their career and unhappy, that is something that will help them get out of it, is to remember to create happiness wherever they are and do meaningful work. And I feel that is, part of the formula of having a successful career. So I wanted to just, end with what are some of the small steps that you recommend for people if they were to do like a couple of small steps today to become happier in their life and career? What would you recommend?
Well, speaking from my own experience, I make sure that I enjoy sitting in my office. And I have a home office. Right now, this is a temporary office, actually, because I have been redecorating my office next door. I'm moving in there tomorrow, and today I have been working on aligning the boxes in the new bookcase that I have, etc. So I'm working on my environment there, the place where I do my work. It needs to feel comfortable. I need to enjoy being there, not only with good quality equipment such as the camera, microphone, and everything, but also with the non-functional stuff, just the nice colors on the wall and stuff like that. So that's something. The environment has an impact on you as a person. And other than that, I make sure that I do not only sit in my office all day long. I have my trips downstairs. I have my trips out of the house. As I said, I run every day. That's important for me. There's no negotiation about it. So you'll have to come up with some habits, whether it is meditation or book reading or exercise or whatever, that you do to on a daily basis to make sure that your day is not just work, but as I offer with my 12 steps to happiness, the 12 things that contribute to happiness, there are quite a few items there that you can inject any time of the day, whether it is an afternoon nap, or which apparently, according to science, is important for, or can be important for people, or meditation, or a hike. Just walk out the door and breathe the fresh air, if you're not in the city center such as me. Yeah, so make sure those are scheduled, that you must make that time, because it's so easy. I've seen it with people who are so busy that by the time it's 7 or 8 a.m. at night, they have been working for 10 hours, and it's time to eat something, and then they're collapsing. They're not taking care of themselves, and that's a sad thing.
Yeah, so the summary is, be in touch with yourself, learn about your intrinsic and moving motivators, start from within first and create, your environment so that it suits you before you actually, go and look for an external environment within another organization that aligns with you. Start from within first. That's really
Yeah.
valuable advice.
Exactly, and as I said, it will be different for different people. So what works for me might not work for someone else. But the 12 steps to happiness, they have at least a few, I'm sure, that resonate with any person. Just do those on a regular basis, and you will feel better.
Thank you, Jurgen. It was really, really nice having you on here, and I hope you have an amazing day, and I'm looking forward to all of your upcoming books.
Thank you so much.